Good evening and welcome to the Community Foundation of Northeast Iowa's Celebration of Community. I'm Kay England, President and CEO. I admit sitting in our office in front of this camera is a little lonely, and I wish we were together in person, enjoying great food and drink and even better company. I hope the celebration of our work together finds you safe and healthy. Our foundation is excited that you have joined us to celebrate this amazing work that we've accomplished together. You truly do drive our mission to inspire people and connect resources to enrich our communities. I'd like to take a moment to thank our event sponsors. First, our presenting sponsor, Marquette Associates. Then our three gold sponsors, Schumacher Elevator Company, Cohesive Creative Code, and Discerning Wealth. In lieu of offsetting in-person event costs, their generous donations will increase our impact in racial equity work this year. Thank you to all our event sponsors for leaning into our core value of inclusion. Once again, thank you for joining us this evening. Now we'll move into highlighting our work this year. This year has been a unique experience. 2020 has caused individuals, families, and organizations to adjust plans, change direction, and find strength we may not have known we had. The Community Foundation of Northeast Iowa has experienced firsthand hope and resiliency in the response of our communities, our generous donors, and our nonprofit partners. Through it all, we have seen people come together for good. We have learned community is more important now than ever before, and we are honored you are here with us tonight to celebrate. While our impact began in 1956 in Waterloo, we now have the privilege of creating impacts in the Cedar Valley and across our 20-county region. Our collective community not only spans a wide geographic area, but includes a diverse people living in both rural and urban communities. Making meaningful impacts could not be done without the dedication of our over 350 volunteers. Our volunteers provide invaluable leadership and knowledge of their community needs and strengths. This committed group cares for their communities and helps spread our mission throughout the region. Thank you for all you do to uplift and serve your local communities. This incredible group of volunteers includes our CFNEIA Board of Directors. The steady leadership of this year's board has continued to guide our organization through these challenging times while focusing on our strategic plan to ensure we are here for good to fulfill our mission. It is my privilege to introduce this year's chair of the Foundation's Board of Directors, Scott Cernett. Scott has prepared a video to share his remarks.
Thank you, Kay. It's been an honor to serve as the chair of the Community Foundation of Northeast Iowa Board of Directors this year. On behalf of our board members, thank you to all of our partners for your ongoing contribution in enriching communities across our 20-county region. This year has shown it takes strong partnerships to create powerful outcomes under extraordinary circumstances. I would also like to recognize my fellow board members for their leadership and dedication. During times like these, it's especially rewarding to work with community-minded leaders who truly care for people and want to impact not just where they live, but our entire region. The Community Foundation is proud to be part of creating vibrant communities of thriving people. We are able to do this today because of the foresight of those who came before us. What an honor to continue on the path they started and expand on their vision. It's incredible to think of the growth of the Community Foundation of Northeast Iowa since 1956. In 2019, the Community Foundation ended its year with $120 million in assets. This is a testament to the incredible generosity of community-minded members, past and present, and a commitment to fiduciary responsibility. Tonight, I'm happy to share a message of strength from Dave Smith of Marquette Associates, our presenting sponsor for this evening's event. Marquette Associates is the Community Foundation's investment consulting and management partner, who with our investment committee, consisting of local professionals, ensures the Community Foundation is here for good. And now, I will read a short message from Dave Smith. 2020 has introduced unexpected challenges. Earlier this year, we experienced the sharpest drop in stock market history, followed by the fastest recovery. Market events like this underscore the need for a diversified portfolio. 7 years ago, the Foundation's investment committee, with Marquette's guidance, implemented a strategic asset allocation that aspires to protect the assets under our stewardship while generating asset growth over the long term. We meet regularly to ensure that the Foundation's assets are allocated according to the investment policy, and we make investment decisions based on thoughtful, disciplined research. Since 2013, the assets under our collective care have doubled, and we are working hard to ensure that the Community Foundation of Northeast Iowa is able to fulfill its charitable goals for years to come. We are very grateful for your partnership and confidence and look forward to seeing everyone again in 2021. Thank you, Dave, for your message, and to Marquette Associates for their guidance and support. Again, on behalf of the Community Foundation of Northeast Iowa Board of Directors, thank you to every one of our partners. The impact of the Community Foundation and our affiliates isn't possible without your commitment, generosity, and passion for making Iowa communities great places for everyone. Be well and enjoy the rest of the program.
Thank you, Scott. We appreciate your leadership this past year, and we are extremely grateful to our entire board of directors. As a community foundation, fiscal responsibility and asset development are, of course, important. However, community impact is the true measure of mission fulfillment. One important measure of this impact is our grant making. In 2019, our foundation and affiliates granted over $5.7 million across our region. This in itself is exciting news, but as we celebrate our 64th anniversary this year, we have reached a tremendous milestone, officially exceeding $100 million in grants since the inception of our foundation. This is truly a historic moment, and I am honored to be a part of this great mission. At this moment, I wish we were giving hugs and high fives and a toast for sure. What an incredible testament to those who have set a vision for a better community in motion. The generosity and partnership of today, and what a legacy for those who will take the baton and keep moving forward for our communities. While we at the Community Foundation are excited, we know that this is just another beginning point. More work must be done to reach our mission, and that was never clearer than this year. In March, COVID-19 began to affect our state and quickly reached pandemic status, as we all know. Its impact was and continues to be felt by all people. It also became clear that services provided by our nonprofit partners were going to be needed more than ever. To help ensure nonprofits serving Black Hawk County could not only continue to provide these services, but increase their capacity, a group of local funders established the Black Hawk County COVID-19 Cooperative Disaster Response Fund here at the Community Foundation of Northeast Iowa. This effort has shown what strong partnerships can do for our community. Through the generosity of funders and others who've made donations to this fund, nearly $350,000 has been raised to date. $335,000 has been granted to nonprofits serving on the front lines of this pandemic. Thank you to all the partners who made this possible. Our affiliates also stepped in to help nonprofits in their communities. 10 affiliates established funds, raising over $220,000 and granting over $175,000, with more to grant as the pandemic continues. Thank you to our volunteers who have led these extraordinary efforts. Then, in June, the Community Foundation joined the voices across our nation calling to end systematic racism and create equitable communities. While we continue to listen to and learn from people of color in our community, we also begin to move into actions that allow us to be an ally in the fight to end racism in our region. The establishment of the Racial Equity Fund at the Foundation is one step in a more substantial response. The Racial Equity Fund was established with a $55,000 grant from our Mission Fulfillment Fund, recommended by our Board of Directors, and it will provide funding for projects moving our communities towards racial equity. To show how community partnerships have been essential during this time and will be even more important moving forward, we invited several community partners working directly in COVID-19 response efforts and racial equity leadership efforts to share their voice in the following video. We are proud to be a part of their important messages.
Throughout all of the pandemic, we have been able to take in large quantities of food and distribute it out to these small food pantries, our mobile pantries, and we've been able to react pretty fast to that because we have the resources, thanks to a strong community, thanks to places like the Community Foundation who supports us, so then we can support all the food pantries. Prior to COVID, there were 43,000 food insecure people in Northeast Iowa, but with COVID, it's projected to go from 43,000 up to 52,000 people in Northeast Iowa being food insecure. And that means our resources are needed more than ever. So early on, we saw a high need for food in our rural communities. And some of the affiliates with the Community Foundation of Northeast Iowa reached out to help us. Normally we run 13 mobile food pantries. We actually increased that to 17, adding 4 additional sites. The funding from the Black Hawk County COVID Relief Fund really helped us early on because we knew people needed food, but we still had transportation, warehousing costs, staff costs, because we never closed. And so those funds helped us in the early stages of ensuring that people in Northeast Iowa had access to food. When there was the high need in food insecurity, it was about the time that Tyson ended up closing, and there was a lot of need, and People's Community Health Clinic reached out, said they were seeing a lot of cases of food insecurity. The food bank, People's Clinic, the county, Operation Threshold, and Embark all came together to ensure that people had access to food. And the pandemic really heightened the awareness of how close people live to food insecurity in their day-to-day lives. Our community is stronger together because we work together. And as the Community Foundation has resources to help places like the food bank and the food pantries that we serve, we don't do anything alone. So we're very grateful for the support of the Community Foundation, its donors, and the community for what they do to help the food bank.
In Cedar Valley, Embark serve many refugee and immigrant communities. This includes refugees from Burma who identify with Karenni, Korean, Chin, and other ethnic groups. Also, many refugees and immigrants from Congo communities. Since I have been in the United States, I never seen a more important time to get information to everyone. The governor sent a message to Iowans every day. Those who can speak English and are from here can have access to this information, but our community did not.
I want just to emphasize one of the barriers that we have, like cultural barrier. So like we used to live together. We like to be together. So that's our everyday lives. So when COVID hurt, and then they give us information how we can contact COVID, how we can prevent ourselves from contacting COVID. So the main barrier was my community like to digest those information, like the social distancing. It was one of the way we can prevent ourselves from getting sick, but it was not easy for us to digest. We used the money to create like a helpline where people with 10 different languages, where people can call with all the questions they have about COVID. So we use it also to hire like a case manager who was helping us follow up with some doctor appointment after the person is released and go home, what we come next. Also, we use the money to improve a little bit the direct services. We use it to do like a food distribution too, because some of the people, when they get COVID, they could not go outside, so they need somebody to bring them food at home. You know, most of our community, we came here looking for better life. Usually when we come here, we have nothing, so we start from zero. And when we start from zero, you don't have no options. I don't miss work because I don't have no choice, because that's how I have to make my life. Some of the challenges, they can be fixed. Some of them, they're hard. We're trying, but if they can help us to fix what is fixable, that'd be great.
COVID-19, boy, the health department, since our first case here, has worked tremendously hard. One of the things that has been very beneficial is the fact that we took on the health equity approach before COVID-19. And so what it does is it allows us to ask who's missing, what voices haven't we heard? Who do we need to reach out to? But the truth of the matter is racism is a public health crisis. And COVID-19 has highlighted how systemic our issues have been. The African American community have endured years and decades of racist policies, which has trickled down to also other populations. In 2018, when Waterloo and Cedar Falls was ranked as the #1 worst cities for African Americans, was something very difficult. But it's important that as a community, we take an opportunity to utilize bad news to do something great. And so it's important for us to ask ourselves, why has that occurred? Why haven't we made the change? And so that really stems from having structural racism and people facing barriers in terms of adequate housing, in terms of health services, in terms of education services. And so we have to recognize that it is the root causes of our problems in this community. And so our responsibility is to really educate ourselves and also be willing to be an anti-racist. How do we educate the community? How do we educate our stakeholders in understanding that this is a systemic issue and we have to work together? People have to be informed, and so that they can make the best decisions for themselves and their communities. And so community partnership is so critical in this work. The health department recognizes that we cannot do it alone. This is a partnership that I believe to be very critical, and we want to engage. We want to hear the different sectors, their experiences, their successes in addressing equity, and also the things that they are intentionally wanting to improve. And then also you have organizations that might not even know where to begin. And so we at the health department, we want to be a resource, and we're trying to find ways of how can we be that resource for the community. The mapping tool is really a tool that we want to utilize to start a conversation, to have a local foundation like the Community Foundation of Northeast Iowa is tremendous, because this is the kind of support that you want at the local level. It's a support that is indicative that local foundations are willing to support a cause that is great. It's really important for us to have that common understanding to achieve a common alignment of how we're going to address this. The inequities within our system is affecting all of us. It's important that we all contribute to help move the needle forward.
The 1619 Project was founded by now Pulitzer Prize winning Waterloo native Nicole Hannah-Jones. And what it does is it's her research regarding the reframing of American history, because in schools we get such little information about the impact of people that were enslaved here, that she really did a lot of research so that people can really have information of the magnitude and how that actually launched a lot of initiatives in American culture, from banking to farming to music. There's been a lot of contributions that we don't necessarily learn about in our American history. While we at that time weren't necessarily experiencing the same liberties and freedoms, we were still saying we're holding a task, that the fundamental values that our nation was founded on, those should be applicable to everyone. So whether you're Black, whether you are a woman, whether you're LGBTQ, these values that we say, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, those need to apply across the board. And that's really what 1619 Project is about. The grant that we're receiving from the Community Foundation is literally a launch grant. It's literally a grant that's going to help us get started and get things moving. And so Nicole expressed that she was extremely appreciative of that, and we're very excited to work with the Community Foundation. We want to start with a smaller cohort of students. Right now in the schools, up until 3rd grade, they get additional literacy support. But after 3rd grade, it's expected that you know how to read. And so then you're learning new concepts. Well, if a student hasn't grasped that concept of reading yet, then everything from science to math, it's still difficult, because what you learn, your comprehension is based off that you know how to read. And so where we're starting at is that we're trying to bridge that gap. So for students that didn't necessarily get a firm grasp on literacy, we're going to work with 4th through 6th graders to kind of bridge that gap and make sure that they have that understanding.
I'm 61 years old. In 1964, I was 5. So many of the voting rights bills, desegregation, these things happened during my lifetime. When you talk about my parents, or my mother is 83 now. Most of her adult life, more than half of it, was in a system of Jim Crow. And we talk Jim Crow as though it was something a century ago, and it is not. So when you see pictures of lynchings, you're looking at people who are your grandparents' ages. So we have to accept the fact that this change, these changes that we take for granted, are still new. You can't make change unless you acknowledge there's a problem. You know, it's not going to be comfortable. Sometimes we're going to have to admit we're wrong, and other times we're going to have to say, hey, I'm right about this, and stick to our guns. But we've got to be honest enough to make those kind of comments and take those types of positions. What I see is good people recognizing that they need to do something. And I think when that happens, we've got a chance. This movement came about because of a sincere concern that board members from all over Northeast Iowa had. And it wasn't just an African American concern, or it wasn't just a concern from Waterloo, Cedar Falls, but a regional concern. And that's how we're going to have to address it, because the state is becoming more diverse. Our own thoughts and ideas need to be challenged. And what the Community Foundation is doing is supplementing some of those programs that are going to be very beneficial to the community as a whole. The Community Foundation can be a leader in addressing these issues, first by making itself available, by being available, being a resource, and understanding that we are not a catalyst for the change, but a way of facilitating and assisting people who are making that change, because the people on the ground are the people that understand what needs to be done. Now, how do we address the problem or the issue in a meaningful way that values all of us as human beings?
Wow, thank you to everyone who participated in our video. As Henry said so well, when good people recognize they need to do something, we have a chance to create better, stronger communities for everyone. The Community Foundation is so proud to have such incredible partners in our mission of enriching communities. Before I conclude this evening's program, I have to thank the incredible people that I get to work with every day. None of our impacts would be possible without our dedicated staff. You have shown your dedication, your commitment, and passion for working beyond good for a greater purpose. Thank you for your service. In 2020, we have experienced the strength and the courage of our communities and the people of our state with the needs that they have participated in. The Community Foundation of Iowa is honored to be a part of these great conversations leading to powerful community solutions. And we are thankful. We are so grateful for our partners, past and present. Thank you for standing with us, believing in our mission, and allowing us to be here for good. Thank you for joining with us this evening. Have a great weekend, and we look forward to our ongoing partnership with you. Good night.